Hi, everybody, and welcome to the RHAP B&B for the finale of Survivor 49. My name is Mike Bloom, talking about the conclusion of the fall season of Survivor. Not to be confused with the many falls Christina was taking off the barrel in this episode. We have a barrel full of stuff to talk about. We said farewell to Survivor 49. We have officially crowned a winner. There is certainly some questions we have to get into, perhaps about a certain jury question. We can talk about the season overall now that it has concluded and look ahead to some of the very interesting things and more specifically, people coming our way with Survivor 50. So we're doing a little bit of an unconventional thing here on the B&B. Of course, we usually have a guest week in and week out. But listen, Survivor 49 like to try out some new stuff for the new era. So we thought we would do the same in that vein. And we are just, as RuPaul would say, keeping it in the family today. It is myself and the person whose sister's name is Marissa, Liana Boraas. Liana, do I get your jury vote?
No, you don't, because I hated you anyway, so I was never going to vote for you. Which would be my assessment on Christina's opinion on Savannah. But no, look, we made it. We did it. We survived.
We did it,
made
Joe.
it throughout the season. We did it. We did it, Joe. I'm so proud of us. We're here. And now I almost feel like a weight has been lifted, because I feel like now not only can we talk about the finale, but we can also look back on kind of our opinions throughout the whole season, because now that it's almost like we know the ending of the book. We know that Rizzo and Savannah are going to be on 50. We have this outlook going to the future, but now we can also, I think, more accurately reflect on the past, kind of knowing all these things, thinking about, oh, how are they going to fit in with 50, knowing that they were going to be on 50, how that impacted, I mean, certainly my viewing experience for sure. So I think it almost feels like a weight has been lifted, like not just that we got the finale, but also it feels like, we can talk about things honestly now.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that this essentially was kind of, for the terminally online, a media res season of Survivor, where your brain has already kind of jumped
Mhm.
to the point where Rizzo and Savannah were on season 50. And so it more so became, okay, how did they get there? And that's really interesting, because I talk about the fact that, in my opinion, every season of Survivor should be watched at least twice. Once week to week when you don't know what's going to happen, a second time when you do, and try to figure out, okay, how did we get to that point? This was almost like time 1.5 meant to be time number one, where again,
Mhm.
if you already knew that these two were going to make it to a certain point where they would get brought back, then I think a lot of your focus, and certainly the edits focus, was dedicated to that. I am sort of of two minds when it comes to like, how will this season hold up on a rewatch, because I do feel like some people feel like they might enjoy it more now that they officially know where these two land. But on the other hand, this is not as extreme as Russell on Samoa, but I think a very
Mhm.
similar style of storytelling where, and Sage actually expressed this in my interview with her, a lot of the story is focused around Savannah and Rizzo, to the point where it kind of does obfuscate some of the greater realities, perhaps, that were happening on the island proper.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like we were definitely feeling this throughout the season, where it feels like this was the hype train almost for Rizzo and Savannah, almost trying to convince me, the viewer, why they should be on season 50, right? Because it was like, well, they had been vetted by production. Jeff, as you know, you told us on the B&B that they got the call right after basically the season
Yeah.
finished wrapping.
No,
So,
literally like the morning after, which I imagine,
yeah.
since they were probably partying till the wee hours of the morning, was only a smattering of time later, where they sat down in a room with Jeff on a Zoom, despite being in Fiji, saying, "Do you want to be on season 50?"
You got to keep some air of mystery. You got to do
And,
it via
they'll talk about it much more, and I want to put words in their mouth in my interviews with them. But what they basically
Mm.
said was like, we got put in a room in front of a laptop, and I thought I was going to talk to my family. But instead, my new
Mhm.
father, Jeff Probst, shows up saying, "Hey, put your family plans on hold for another 26 days. Do you want to come back?"
Yep. Yeah, so they, as you said, the morning after, then invited back to play 50. So I do think that there was a certain element of, and I don't know if this is me making it up in my own head, but it felt like no, they're really fun. Like you're really gonna like them as
Hmm.
characters. So I agree with what Sage was saying. Like I'm sure, and it happens every season, right? We know that not everything is shown. We know that not all
Yeah.
the storylines are shown, but I'm sure it probably either felt more like it in this season, just because knowing they're on 50 and knowing that, you kind of want the audience to know who these people are and you want them to care about them going into 50.
So let's talk about the finale first and foremost. A whole 3 hours, 3+ hours, for those of us that were watching live on the Central and Eastern
Yeah.
time. So that was wild. That was pretty wild, actually. I think a lot of us are going to look back on the fact that of this wild season. Of course, this was the finale to get interrupted by a presidential address. Now, for what it's worth, real ones might remember that this is not necessarily the first time. Like, I remember, I believe Survivor Philippines was in the fall of
Mm.
2012. So I think there was a point where Obama may have like interrupted the finale to give a press conference on the tragedy that was the Sandy Hook shooting. I can't remember though if they did what they did here, which was to say, like, all right, we're just going to take a pause right now. Everyone take a break, take like 25 minutes. Sage is, or Christina's gone, and then we'll
Mhm.
jump back into the proceedings of things. I mean, I'm certainly happy because maybe my hot take, Liana, was I actually really enjoyed this finale.
Oh, okay. San's presidential address, I assume.
Imagine like if this is when I go
Or
full mask off.
you were like, actually, that was I enjoyed the
My favorite
intermission.
part of the finale was 9 to 9:22 Eastern Standard Time.
I will say it was kind of nice to have a break because I went and I like got ready for bed and I got my PJs on. So I'm not saying it should happen. That was ridiculous, but like at least I took advantage of the intermission. Okay.
Should there have been
Okay.
like a picture in picture, like in the corner, like just watch like the challenge on mute? Like you could still pay attention the entire time.
Yeah, they do that now in NFL broadcasts, right? Where they have
Yeah.
like a commercial on the side and then the
Yeah.
little picture in picture. Yeah, it should have been that. But okay, so wait, tell me, why did you like it so much?
I think it's because now I did a podcast with Rob before the finale, trying to paint perhaps a more positive brush on some of this stuff with
Mhm.
Survivor 49. Not to say that as we'll talk about the season overall, there aren't misgivings that I've had with it, certainly nits to pick, but I think there's some hair amongst those nits, perhaps, that we
Mhm.
can comb out. But I do think at least my thoughts on how this finale would go did not necessarily pan out. For one, I
Hmm.
very much thought Sage would get voted out over Christina, something that I think people were still kind of questioning through it happening, where you have these two arguments of like, well, Christina's better in fire, but Sage is, a more threatening presence, probably would do better in the final three. They take Christina out, yet another, I think, piece of questionable gameplay from the
Mhm.
people who have the most power. And then final four, I don't know why. I was so dead set on a Tres Leches final three. Maybe I just was not. I was
Yeah.
thinking that Soph was. I know Rizzo said he was the boy who cried wolf, but really Soph was sort of filling that category for the past few weeks of like, I'm gonna flip on him. I'm gonna flip on him. I'm like, the train has passed by the station many times, and you chose not to get on it. It's more so that she saved herself for the express, I suppose, coming a bit
Mhm.
down the line, as she does make this move to put her two closest allies into fire, which does make a lot of sense in retrospect, considering that Jeff said this season was all about changing loyalties, that not even the most loyal group of three was immune from this virus. And she chooses to do that. So I was again building myself up for like this big Rizzo Savannah final two showdown, who was going to take it
Mhm.
over whom. And Rizzo goes out in fire making. Now, to get into our preseason predictions a bit more later on, maybe I should have stood my ground with what I was thinking back in April versus December. But at least at this time, I was feeling a little bit shocked by that. I didn't think I imagined Sage in the final three. Maybe I just thought that the Carolyn connection would be a little too strong for that to
Mhm.
happen, and she does end up getting a jury vote, which is more than Carolyn got. But then in the final tribal council as well, there's a couple of surprising things. Of course, we'll get into Christina's jury question. I think I would venture to say, Liana, maybe the most talked about jury question we have had for a long time, even pre New Era. And
I love it.
no, same. Spoiler alert. We'll get into, I'm sure, a lot more later on. And then also, I think the ability for Soph to kind of come through. A lot of people,
Mhm.
including the finalists, including Savannah herself, were saying that Sophie was doing a really, really good job at Final Tribal Council. And it's in the vein that we saw from Sam a year ago as well. And that, like, someone can just come out of nowhere and listen, maybe it did not nudge all the votes in her corner, but it certainly got her a couple more than I thought there would be if she was sitting in the final three.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a very similar vision to the final 3. I thought that Rizzo's edit also was the strongest in terms of a contender who could go against Savannah. I felt
Yeah.
like neither Sophie had losing finalists written or whatever. Can we just
Oh, let's
it's
just
so
call her Sophie.
okay.
Did you hear
Whatever.
in the final challenge, Jeff like called her Sophie, like slip of the tongue for 1 second,
Yeah.
then went,
Yeah.
my hot take is that Sophie getting to hear her true name, her government name, instead of
He was
this
like,
soap that was foisted upon her was like, oh my God, I can win. That was another big thing as well. That like we thought that Savannah was going to probably win both challenges and or
"Mhm.
make Survivor history by now becoming the woman who has won the most challenges, tying the all-time individual immunity challenge record. But leave it to freaking Sophie to mount, I think, one of the biggest comebacks I've seen in the new era and be able to take home
Mhm.
immunity where it meant the most. Like, again, you talk about someone coming on strong in the final couple of days. Sophie did that and then some.
Mhm. Well, I mean, and that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought Savannah was going to take home the record. Okay, not only is she a winner, she broke the record. Of course, let's have her back for 50. So that
Mhm.
was where I thought we were going. I thought Rizzo in second. I thought Soph in third. And I had never really considered an outcome outside of that, which it is. So I can't wait to do our preseason predictions. I
Uh,
think you and I are on the same wavelength, which
I
I think
know.
again we should have stuck with. But that was just what I anticipated happening. And after the first the first immunity, I was like, great, Savannah's got this. Christina or Sage goes. Who cares? One of them loses in fire. So then when Sophie ended up coming back, which miraculous, by the way, and then ended up winning, I was just like, oh wait, what is going to happen? Like, is
Yeah.
Sophie gonna win? I like everything I knew got thrown into complete shambles. It was actually really exciting.
Hambos.
It was complete shambos, chickens all around. And so I think like having that made it certainly that next hour, 2 hours, so much more exciting because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I started again questioning everything I knew.
Yeah, that's the thing is that at least again, and I would say that this might be one of the more unpredictable finales we've had in some time. I guess 46 would like slightly qualify, but I think everyone was so on board with Kenzie winning that like even if it did come across happen in a very surprising way, I think people were still relatively on board with that. And maybe that was to a certain extent from a Savannah perspective, but like 48, we knew that Mitch was going, and then that that some combination of Joe and Eva would be in the finale or in the final three. 47 was honestly maybe the most straightforward finale we've seen in a long time,
Mm,
especially with it being the final four. That once Rachel won run, it was like
yeah.
curtains there. I mean, honestly, not since 45, or 45 had that goddamn ridiculous final five 2-1 to 1-1 vote. I think have we had so many different things happen, and maybe it's also because again the bar is set relatively low that I think again we sort of had the mentality in our minds of like, all right, well, how is the trio going to be able to finagle their way out of a vote this time, despite having
Yeah.
the target on them? Who's going to, make an own goal the most to get them ahead in the game? And it turns out that, yeah, the dream of the three of them making it to those final three stumps was a pipe dream only.
Yeah, I think in terms of final tribal council for the new era, nothing will ever trump 43. Like I
Yes.
just I remember where I
Ironically enough, a
was.
finale that Trump did not show up on was 43.
That's true. That's true. Shout out Alaska. So for me, it was like that was just like the fuck is Whereas with this one, it was more just like, oh, like I was more intrigued, I guess, maybe more than
Mm,
anything. I think also because you had that knowledge of them on 50. So it was like, okay, how is this gonna play out? Rizzo goes in final four fire making. It was like, oh, okay. Now I can see that vision. I see that for him. But Savannah still has to win, right? Like Savannah losing there, I think that would have been a gag.
yeah,
So
100%.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, let's get into some of the bigger beats, I would say, from the finale. And we got to start with, I think, the most talked about element out of the entire 3 hour extravaganza, Liana.
Mhm.
It is Christina's jury question. I have something I want to show you. This revelation came to me as of late.
Yes.
But in the effort of looking back on the season a little bit in preparation for this podcast, I did go back to my preseason interviews with the final five, and in
Okay.
talking with Christina, I discovered a little something interesting. Let's give a listen. Favorite moment in Survivor history? Does it involve some of the stuff you were talking about?
So it's actually from season 1.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, throwback all the way back, because I think it really speaks to kind of like the social aspect. And it was when Kelly was about to get voted out, and everyone was like plotting against her, and then the challenge was how well you knew people.
Yeah.
And I was like, boom, like she won it, and she was supposed to be the next one out, and it was like, boom, in your face, like you are aligned with people, and you guys don't even know the information, and I do. And I felt like that was like the biggest like mic drop moment.
Yeah, we'll talk about hot takes later, but I
Yeah.
always felt that's a challenge they should bring back, like the fallen
Yes,
comrades. It's
I
tough
do.
because Vesepia low-key broke it because she brought a notebook to the game,
Yes,
and so she wrote
yes,
everything down. But now that that's not allowed, like
yeah, like I feel like I kind of want it brought back too.
yeah, because I think that it is something to like sit there at tribal council with the jury and
Yep.
basically be tested, like, yeah, how well do you know these people?
Yeah. If I don't make it to the final 3, which I better, but let's say I don't and I'm on the jury, I literally, that was going to be like my question to them was like, okay, what's my daughter's name? What's like, I want to know, like,
Yeah.
do you know me at all? So if it doesn't get brought back, maybe I can bring it back.
And bring it back, she did.
She did. No, we love a woman of her word.
So
That's amazing. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued, Liana. We'll get your overall thoughts about this, but does this change your opinion one way or the other, knowing that this was a little premeditated from even days before she set foot on the beach?
Well, no, I mean, I think you asked the question this year in your interviews that was, if you were on the jury, what criteria would you use to vote for the winner? So I don't think that there's anything wrong with thinking about what you value in a winner of the game who's going to represent your season. I also think that it can impact how you play, because if you value strategy over social, then you might value strategy over social when you're voting as a member of the jury. So for Christina, clearly social was a big element of what she valued out there. That was something that she wanted to vote on. So that was what her question was based on. And I think the reason why I like that question so much from her is because it's what she cares about, right? Now, would Savannah have ever convinced her unless she pulled out, I know your entire family tree, let's walk through your genealogy? Like, I don't even know.
23 and me.
Yeah.
49 and me.
We love it. Hopefully no bankruptcy there. But anyway, so I think that it just reflects what the players care about. So for me, I learned more about Christina almost, I feel like, in that moment than I did throughout the whole season, because I learned how much she does value those social connections and learning about the other people that she's playing with. And that's probably why her social game was such shit, because her social game was really what she cared about, and that was what she valued. So that's what she put her energy into.
Yeah, so obviously a few thoughts on this. First, when it comes to my own answer to that question as to this discovery that, this is something that Christina had intended to ask ahead of time, I think two things can be true. I think this is an interesting rebuttal to, I think, a lot of accusations that have come out when this question was asked, when this was aired, of like, oh, Christina came up with this question just to trap Savannah, just to dunk on her by being like, you don't know anything about us. I think two things can be true. I think Christina could have had a plan to come into a jury situation with this question in her head. I also think there is a chance that she thought, okay, I know Savannah doesn't know this about me, so let me expose her for it. She told me as much. She had said that, like, she wanted Savannah to prove her wrong. And I think there has been some talk about it in interviews as well about how, like, Yellow Sophie, like, called her out on it, being like, why didn't you ask that to Sophie and Sage? And I think she did, but a little bit more of a half-ass way. So again, I think that while this was premeditated and it's super interesting, it was not to also call out Savannah as well. And I think you make a really salient point. I mean, let me also say here, because there's been quite a lot of opinions about this. This is objectively good television. Like, this is so fun. It's an exciting element. Now, I think your mileage may vary as to, like, whether you feel like this is a quote unquote right question to ask. I think the certain opinion has certainly been bandied about as like some people saying, well, I wouldn't vote for somebody who slips on a banana peel so hard, a Savannah banana peel, to just be with it with nearly everyone in the jury. There's some that are like, who the hell cares? This is Survivor, not, Get to Know Me Island. And so
Mhm.
I do think that your opinion as to whether or not this should have mattered in the end can definitely vary. I think, though, that the opinion should be held across the board that this was really fun television. And I think what is so interesting on both sides of this question is the fact that, as you said, this pertains to not only what Christina values as a juror, but specifically what each person values in the quote unquote social game.
Mhm.
Christina obviously wants to dig deep, and not only dig deep, but dig deep from a perspective that she really relishes, which is family. She is a very family led woman. She talks about her kids, talks about her husband, she talks about obviously the loss of her mom and that entire emotional reconciliation. What Savannah exercises, especially in her final statement, is the fact that like she made relationships. She made bonds with people. They were not over the names of family members. She said that she and Alex talked about work a lot. She and
Mhm.
Yellow Sophie bonded over being, the eldest children in their family. She opened up to Steven about her past work trauma. And I think it does show the various hues that could come with this rainbow gradient that is a social game, in that you can talk with people and get personal details about a myriad of things. And look, this was not a good look for Savannah whatsoever. Like, yes, she knew stuff about people, but Christina specifically asked, give the name of a family member. She failed at that, but I at least admired the effort for her to try to shoehorn in during the answer to that question, like, well, I don't know this, but I do know this, to showcase, like,
Mhm.
okay, she was not like a complete blank slate. I don't even know her to the majority of this jury.
I mean, I think you also have to look. Okay, so I think pointing out what Christina values, which is the relationship and knowing names, is important, but also the subtext of that question was, how well do you know us? And I
Yeah.
think that that's where Savannah was able to, very good interview answer, by the way, which is like, I don't know this, but I know this.
Yep.
And here's how this still demonstrates an aspect of the original question that was being asked, which is, I did bother to listen to you. I did remember the words that you were saying. It wasn't just you were talking to me and other were little just birds like fluttering in my head, right? Like I was listening and comprehending the things that we were talking about. So I think that Savannah did a really great job from that perspective, being able to comment on the things that she knew. And also, so what if Christina is trying to like put the spotlight on Savannah for something? Who cares? It's like you said, it's great TV. It's her opportunity as the juror to ask her question. Let her be messy. Let's do it. I'm so here for it.
That's the thing. It's messy, and I think that's a good way to describe this season overall, from a strategic perspective, personal perspective. But like, it is pretty messy. I think another point that people take against this is they feel like, well, Savannah couldn't have bungled this question because she won. And I'm sorry, that's incredibly results oriented thinking.
Mhm.
We have had winners who have not had good final tribal councils in the past, who have still
Yeah.
won. I go back to Ethan Zahn in Survivor Africa, where Brandon Quinton asks him a question and Ethan just essentially shuts Brandon down. And Brandon, as a result, doesn't vote for him. Guess what? Didn't matter. Ethan
Yep.
still wins 5-2. Savannah attempts to answer a question for Christina here, does not shut her out, but she essentially shuts herself down by answering it incredibly awkwardly and incorrectly. Guess what? Doesn't matter. It seems like truly, as much as this obviously cemented not earning Christina's vote and maybe had some people like MC leaning the other way, all she needed was 5, and she got 5. It's okay
Mhm.
for the winner of your season to not have the best performance on day 26.
Yeah, exactly. And also, again, it goes back to what every single what other people value. We know that those tribal councils go on way longer than what we see on television. So there's other topics that are covered. There's other things that are swaying people's votes. And I think to look at just like one single question to represent someone's final tribal council performance, I think is really short-sighted. So for me, yeah, sure, you can bungle pieces of the question, even though I think she did the best with it with what she could. I still think that she was so passionate in her delivery. Even Sage was like, "How do I follow up with that? Like, how do I follow that? You know, just because Savannah just sitting in the middle, commanding the energy in the room. I think that she did a really great job throughout the season and a good job in the final tribal. And I think everybody really did. I didn't think that this was we didn't have that like one person that like that just is like, I'm out of this, like I give up kind of situation. Like even Sage, who only ended up getting one vote, still I feel like fought to the end.
Yes, but some information has come out through Sage's press, at least from her perspective, that
Mm,
even though we thought this was not the case, this appeared not to be the case in reality.
ah,
Savannah herself
gotcha.
has confirmed that the jury was like low key pretty brutal to Sage, which like
Yeah, okay.
unfortunately I'm not incredibly surprised about in a couple of fronts. Rob brought up a really interesting point in his podcast, one of his podcasts this past week about like comparing Sage to the mom trope that we saw in like a lot of the 20s seasons with Dawn, with Lisa Welchel, etc., with Monica Culpepper, where it's like, not to say that Sage is a mom type, but it's like you have this emotional investment in us, and then you betrayed us. I'm having trouble reconciling that. And so I do think Sage was trying to talk up a lot of her game, you know, reveal parts of herself, talk about her decade in the military. But I feel like with the vast majority of these things, it is often too little too late. And it's often confirmation bias. You know, like I think maybe Eva was able to move a couple of things in her direction last season by revealing that she was a PhD student. But I feel like so much of a person's opinion is garnered over 25 days of playing them.
Yeah.
It's really tough to sort of like reverse the momentum of that big rig by pressing on the brakes all of a sudden and be like, whoa, Sage was in the military. Guess this changes everything I felt about her for 3 weeks.
Well, and I think the thing is too is you learn that information, then you have to process that information, then you have to use that information to help you justify voting for them. Like it's a
Yeah.
lot of cognitive processing to be doing in such a short period of time. So unless it's a reveal that I don't know, has I feel like a baby on the way, right? Like Jeremy, like that kind of reveal. I feel like that's maybe something that you can leave to the end, but I do feel like anything
Would be
like
kind of
that,
weird
it's
if
just
anyone in
too
this
late.
final three said they had a baby on the way.
Oh my gosh, imagine.
Imagine if all three of them said it,
And we are all pregnant. It
holding
was
hands.
the Boston Rob statue that impregnated all of us. We're all
Oh,
having
no.
more Boston Rob babies. Anyway, so yeah, I just feel like there's not a lot that you can do. But that's unfortunate for Sage that she got that treatment from the jury. Although I also can understand why, because from their perspective, they're like, you had this way easier path this way. Why did you choose this? Like, this
Yes.
doesn't make any sense.
That's exactly it. I think a lot of their perspective could probably be couched in like, you kept saying that you wanted Savannah out, and then you had
Yeah.
multiple opportunities and you didn't get her out. Instead, you betrayed us. What gives? And Sage has her own perspective, which is namely like, I tried, nobody would listen. Y'all were a
Mhm.
hot mess, Hina. And I do feel like Survivor 49 is a low-key, very emotional season. I feel like a lot of the gameplay and personal relationships were driven by emotion in every sense of the word. Obviously, we have a lot of these like semi-petty rivalries happening, particularly when you have, you know, Savannah versus Juwan, Sage versus Shannon, Sage versus Savannah, etc., etc. You obviously have a lot of emotions affiliated with people's backstories. And you know, you have one of the biggest players of the post-merge be a self-admitted emotionally forward facing player. And so looking back on it more, I'm not incredibly surprised that like you had a jury that was rather emotional as well about the fact that, as Sage mentions, she voted against every one of them except for Jawan. And yes, while maybe with different people with different juries, that could be looked upon and commended of like, aha, you were always in the right. You always knew what was going on. You get my vote for the awareness. This
Mhm.
particular case, it was more so one of those classic instances of we had something going on and you betrayed that for a reason that I don't necessarily agree with.
Mhm. Well, I think it's that, and I also think and you're telling me you're gonna sit next to your biggest target at the end also. Like, I think that was probably played a big role as well. If it was Rizzo, like Rizzo and Savannah, potentially things could have been perceived at least a little bit differently. But I'm sure it's so tough to be sitting next to the person that, from everybody on the jury's perspective, you've been targeting and you're saying is this big threat. and you let her get to the end and sit next to you, why should we reward you instead of her? Especially because when Sage has put up this such clear juxtaposition between Savannah's amazing, Savannah's going to win, Savannah's doing all these things, you hear that over and over and over again, and then you believe it, right? So it just, I think that there are a lot of understandable reasons why the jury would be reacting that way based on the events that transpired throughout the season.
While Savannah had a big old oopsie here in the final tribal council, I would not say it skewed oopsie overall, because I actually think one other answer that maybe was a little polarizing that she had to another question I really admired, which was the Jawan, give us a reason why you were out here. And Sophie and Sage, both very understandably so, go into, their own instances of personal loss and feeling that spirit through them as they had the tenacity to apply themselves in multiple ways day in and day out. And Savannah was completely honest and was like, oh, I am doing this for myself. I decided this was the year of Savannah after I had this miserable time at my job. By the way, I'm a former reporter. And though, Jawan, I don't think you should incorporate that into your reasoning. I mean, on paper, that's pretty brazen. As you mentioned, everyone on that jury has a reason, has a rationale for voting the way that they do. Kind of wild out of the gate to be like, yeah, but I don't think you should vote this way. On the other hand, I do think it furthers the perception of Savannah, which was how emotionally authentic she was. And maybe that did grade up against some people, especially from an interpersonal perspective. But this was not a case where it's like, okay, I'm going to just butter up the jury by telling them everything they want to hear. Like, Savannah was aware enough to know how she was looked at, that she was fine being steadfast in that answer, knowing that I think at the very worst, people would be like, I disagree with her, but like, I knew Savannah was going to say that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we hear this from jurors all the time, especially recently in the new era, where they want to reward that authenticity and they want you to have a clear vision of what your game looked like. You don't have to be perfect. You didn't have to orchestrate every move. That's why Gabler won, for goodness sakes, because he at least was like, yeah, I did this one thing, so that's so cool. I mean, obviously, he talked about other stuff as well, but he had a realistic view on what his game was. And I think that for Savannah, she didn't try to all of a sudden pull out and make up some reason. She was, as you said, authentically herself. And on top of that, she doesn't need every single person's jury vote. If she feels like Jawan is already lost to Sage, why even bother? Like, just be honest, be authentic, hoping that that will then appeal to the other 5, or I guess in that case, other 6, whatever, 7 people that were voting. So in that case, I think that that's the absolutely correct answer, especially in this era, in this time period, and with that jury.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that perspective, which Savannah has also affirmed to me in her interview, that like she came in basically feeling like, yeah, I don't need to necessarily get all the jury votes. I just need to get most of them, is a little antithetical to the new era. Because I feel like the new era, and this season especially in the pre-merge, was a little bit of this unanimity, right? Which was like, okay, we all need to be on the same page. And so maybe that reflects sometimes the answers that you give of like, I want to make sure I have as wide of a base as possible that I'm appealing to so that I catch as many people in this net as I could. Savannah's less so about like, let me cast the net, and more so like, I have a poll and I have 5 specific fish that I need to lay. Maybe 4, because I pretty much know that Rizzo's voting for me. So like, let me specifically go for that. If another fish comes swimming by, that's great if they end up grabbing the hook. I'm not going to cast out their specific bait. I only have a limited amount of bait, a limited amount of time. I just don't know any other winners in recent memory who kind of have that approach to a final tribal council, rather than what you would assume everyone would take, which is like, I'm just going to make this appealing to everybody so that hopefully everyone is able to vote for me.
Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of factors that play into it. I think depending on who the jury members are, how polarized they might be, who you're sitting next to, whom you think like, oh, this person corners the market on the Christina archetype, right? Like, they were the social person who memorized everybody's names, who da 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 da. You're like, I am literally never going to be able to compete with that person. Like, I will never earn that vote, that independent voter's vote. Like, that's not mine. That's her base. space. That's not mine. So I am going to learn from Alex and really focus on my base, turn out the vote for
I'm all
my
about that base.
She is all about that base. No trouble. She's here to get those people, get Nate back on board, right? Like, that you can get Nate back on board. You've got Rizzo. Okay, great. You work on Alex, work on Steven, those people who you did make genuine connections with, who you think what they value at least. So appeal to that to get those people to vote for you, because there's some that no matter how hard you try, they're just never going to vote for you. So don't even bother to have a bland but palatable approach, right? Like, you would rather be the firebrand who takes those votes.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
yeah,
before
the
we start moving
strategy.
into what the many predictions we put out here about these 5 people, I want to get your thoughts overall about the season, Liana, because now we have officially seen all 26 days. And even if, again, we thought that it was Savannah's to lose, there were certainly some interesting things that happened in the finale. And I know it is tough to, as you mentioned, inextricably separate your view of the season with probably the large hunch you had about the 2 who would come back. But now that we've officially ended the story, what are your thoughts on 49 overall? Do you think it is the worst New Era season, as some people are saying?
No, and I think it's going to be a lot better on a rewatch
Hmm.
than I think that hanging over the head of the Rizzo Savannah thing, I think that for me really ruined the first watch through, but I think it's going to be a lot better on the second. I think that there's a lot of interesting relationships, there's a lot of really interesting characters, sure, some cringeworthy moments, but the New Era has that plenty. I think especially the second half of the season, I think is going to be a lot more exciting when you go back and maybe can look for, oh, why did those, because this was my biggest critique throughout the season, was that I feel like the line of logic was never really laid out clearly for some
Hmm.
of the decisions that were being made. So I think on a rewatch now, really looking for those details, knowing what the ending is going to be, maybe those are there, and I think that it would be a lot more interesting to go back into the season now knowing the ultimate outcome. So for me, I don't think it's the worst season. I think certainly bottom half, but I would not say worst.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the lows were certainly low. I do think
Mm,
this was the worst pre-merge of the New Era, just between how straightforward it was and how even the on-island stuff was like, you could have straightforward vote outcomes and still have interesting episodes. Those first 5 were not necessarily bringing
yeah.
home a lot. The most exciting thing to honestly happen with the first month and a half of Survivor 49 was a man almost dying from a venomous snake bite.
It was really good TV though.
It was really, yeah, that was really good TV, and a woman spitting in a man's face,
I
nonsensically in the
loved
very first
that.
episode. But when it
Awful.
picks up, Lord, this is almost
Yeah.
Caramoan-esque in oh my god, the shoot up that it happens, even from the Shannon vote, because I thought that was really good storytelling in building up, obviously, like a volcano, a lot of the pent up magma frustration that Sage had been
Mhm.
feeling, spending all of her time with Shannon before it finally erupts in this, passive aggressive, I won't hug you type of moment. And that's the thing. I actually feel like this was a very personally driven season, which I like a little bit better from my perspective of storytelling, just because I'm not a huge strategy person. I like finding out some of the more human elements behind decisions. Yeah, Sage, I may not agree with you wanting to have a vendetta against Sophie S and then deciding to just eschew the Savannah of it all and go after her, but I at least appreciate the perspective into it. I do feel like maybe some of my misgivings, beside, as you mentioned as well, some of the more cringy humor-based moments that I felt probably played much better on the island than they did on screen, and serving yet again as sort of a referendum on the New Era of of course we had a disaster tribe, of course we have to have a rice negotiation that goes nowhere. I do feel like there was a more interesting story for this season that could have been edited if this wasn't Survivor 49.
Mm.
I keep going back to the fact that apparently Steven was this massive endgame threat that
Mhm.
everyone from his closest allies to his greatest enemies were saying, if Steven had made his way to the final 3, he would have won. He was much more strategically apt than the episodes made it out to be, which was more so lol, he's on the bottom. He's going to find an advantage and say a couple metaphors at tribal council. I
Mhm.
do feel like if the story was told in a way to, and again, as you mentioned, I understand serving the purpose of really getting us hyped on these 2 particular characters. I also understand the hype from their perspective of they were down 7-3 at the final 10 and they somehow wound up being 3 of the final 4. that's an incredible story. I do feel like, yes, it always comes at the expense of other people's tales, but it does come at the cost as well of like the Steven boot, for example. Now, listen, there are still question marks behind why Christina and Sage did what they did. I feel like the question marks have been minimized, particularly when you find out in reality why Steven ends up going when he does, because he was so close to making it to a point where he could have been even greater than Savannah or a Rizzo or a Sophie, the odds-on threat to win the season.
Yeah, and this was also the thing with Sophie S as well, right?
Yeah.
It was like, why did you, and what's crazy is that we have seen, like, there are, we almost call, like, in the editing world, we talk about like the final boss, like the final boss that needs to be defeated for the winner to then go on. It was Genevieve for Rachel, right? So there's that person, and I guess Rizzo was kind of that person for Savannah, but I feel like it could have been Steven, it could have been Sophie, it could have been both of them. Build them both up as threats that, like, hey, these guys, and then that makes your winner look better because they defeated them. Like, I just don't understand why you would kind of downplay and like make them not as big of a threat. If they actually were, which in Steven's case, at least they were, but like that, it just feels like, why wouldn't you show that more? So I don't know.
Yeah. So I think, as you mentioned, some reflection is going to help nudge this one way or the other. But I do think, honestly, this might be a season that is enjoyed more on a binge than a week to week, where I think a lot of the week to week, I usually enjoy the discussion in between to really marinate in some of the smaller moments or, bigger strategic decision points to talk through. But this is one that maybe flows better when you know the overall arc and you don't need to necessarily, especially in those first 6 weeks, like stop down and talk about like, well, this was another straightforward unanimous vote. What do you think happened there? Maybe it's better to sort of then say, all right, let's look at the next episode, even during some of these big moves that were being made in the post-merge, which I do think were incredibly unpredictable. I mean, I ran it through with RHAP, but like nobody thought MC would go, even when you looked at that faction of the split tribal council. Nobody thought that everyone would turn on Alex. Nobody thought that after Jawan was in the power position for 3 votes that everyone would turn on him. Nobody thought that everyone would suddenly then turn on Sophie S, who had flipped things away. One other question I have, Liana, as I was sort of chewing on this game a little bit, I think that I mentioned that MC vote. Savannah winning that endurance challenge is not only the pivot point of the season, but one of the biggest sliding doors we have seen in the new era. Thoughts on that?
Get out the butterflies, baby. I do think
they are the dead relatives saying hi.
Exactly. I've got my shirt somewhere in the closet. I think that when you look at what, and this is, after the Nate boot, it was like, and knowing that again, Savannah and Rizzo were on 50 was like, how the hell are they going to get out of this? Like, it just felt like this is not a tenable situation. Like, what is going to happen? And I think, like, you're totally right that was the tipping point in the season where everything sort of started to swing. Everything got a lot more chaotic. There was a lot more distrust amongst that solid group that had voted out Nate. And I think that set up the flip-flopping, the changing loyalties throughout the rest of the season. If she hadn't have won that and we had gotten kind of an easy, Savannah boot potentially, like, what does the rest of the season look like? I think it's completely different.
Yeah, because if you look at it from multiple perspectives, had Savannah not won, she would have been the easy vote out at her tribe's tribal council. Now, granted, we still would have had the twist of someone else coming over. I guess in that case, it would be Sophie S. Does she change things up? Probably not, but Savannah and Soph would have 2 votes there. So maybe, but the other part of it was Savannah's even just presence at that tribal council. I've been told by multiple people in that group that her just showing up spooked everyone enough to not go with Rizzo. They were going to go with Rizzo. They were trying to get him to not play his idol, go out with it in his pocket. But because Savannah was there, they thought, okay, we assume that she's going to vote. We can't do our plan of essentially 4-1 of like throw that vote away onto Jawan in case Rizzo plays an idol. Because if Rizzo and Savannah have 2 votes, they take power. They majority rules there. They're the minority, but they take majority if the idol is played correctly. And so then it leads to just everything falling apart with Jawan wanting to turn on Sophie, and then everyone turning on to MC, and then the fallout from MC's boot being that Sophie S realizes how on the out she is with Hina, so then she flips over with everything. Not to mention, as was talked about in the after show, Savannah didn't necessarily need the extra votes she got from that, but it certainly helped, right? Then she was able to kind of do, have the alliance be able to utilize it a bit more during the Jawan boot to at least secure they had the numbers no matter whether Yellow Sophie was with them or not.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. It's more the confidence of knowing that you're going to be able to pull it off because you're like, don't worry, we have this extra vote in our back pocket. So even though, yeah, sure, as Jeff wanted to point out, technically, no, you didn't need it.
Yeah, it was a weird segment where he's like, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong.
Just to be clear, like, okay, petty Jeff, that's fine.
Which
again,
I also low-key love as well, that like, I don't know. I feel like how many times in the new era have advantages and idols be used in the way that they want to, right? There have been times where it's like spelled disaster for people, like we saw last season with the dice leading all to these, chaotic no vote scenarios. But I feel like, Jeff wants that Julie Alley-esque, like, correct idol play. She takes somebody out with an idol. And we have seen much more them either not be used or used to no effect than the other side of the coin.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, okay, so like look at Alex's idol play in the pre-merge. Sure, technically he didn't have to play it, but he used it so that he wouldn't go home. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it still worked. And I think it's the same thing with this extra vote. It's like when you win individual immunity and you're more brazen to take a crazier move, right? Because you're like, ooh, I have security, so I'm safe. So yeah, let's go for like the big target. Let's flush the idol tonight because I know I'm safe. So it's kind of the same thing. Like when you have these idols and advantages, even if you don't ultimately need them, you still used them to get the outcome that you wanted that prevented you from going home. So like, whatever.
Yeah, and Jeff's like, Steven, you tried to use knowledge as power, didn't work. Steven, you used the block a vote, didn't need to. And it's like, Soap's knowledge as power didn't work because she did not realize that this was one of like the 3 times in Survivor history where an advantage was used before Tribal Council. B, Steven's block a vote worked because he thought that's what the plan was. Like this wasn't well, might as well try something. Like he went in with the concerted effort with an entire working architectural system of, okay, I'm going to play this block vote and then us 3 carry through and win the day. It's not his fault that he realized that the building was put on hold in general.
I love that Jeff was like, and you still went home, loser. Like that was the subtext.
Well, remember, he's also Mr. The experience is the real prize. So I think he's trying to be like, soften the blow a little bit, though harden it simultaneously.
I guess so. I do think I had a couple favorite moments from the finale. One was, of course, Rizzo copying Savannah's puzzle. Classic callback. We live. And the second was Rizzo after he gets voted out, the confessional that they like give at the end, and he's doing the saddest, the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOD, God, Riz God, baby. Like, it's so sad. He sounds so dejected, whereas most of the time he's like, the man, the myth, the legend.
I mean, he should be pumped. He got Jeff Probst to say Riz God. Now, maybe, Rizzo had a hint that Jeff would be colliding with Mr. Beast in the future, because this is so out of character and maybe shows how much Jeff does make this experience for the players. He's like, listen, you want me to call you this? You want me to call you Dingleberry David? I will gladly say that as I snuff your torch. Like, he supplicated to the Riz God in that moment.
Unless your name is Sophie, in which case he will refuse to call you.
If there were 2 Riz Gods, game over.
Game over. You're Riz God, you're Riz G, okay? It's done. I decided.
Riz Go.
Final story. Yeah. Will I completely screw it up multiple times this season? Yes. Will all of you be confused? Yes. Will it confuse the audience? Yes. But we're doing it. I don't care.
I mean, this is objectively wild. Yes, we have luckily been susceptible to the entire moniker of this man, myth, legend the entire time. But imagine if you're sitting on the jury and you've known this guy for 3.5 weeks, and he's like, Jeff, will you do me a favor? Would you call me the Riz God?
I really wish we had gotten more shots of the jury in response to him doing
I mean,
that.
Jawan was like, jaw agape. Though, to be fair, I think if you presented like Jawan a ripe cantaloupe, he would give a similar reaction. He has resting YouTube thumbnail face.
Oh, yeah. He's like hyped by everything. Anything happens. He's like, whoa, that's crazy.
A penny! Oh, man!
They don't even make those anymore. Alex's face. That's who I wanted to see. I wanted to see because it was, to me, I feel like Alex, especially the look when Steven gave that like confessional about the knees in the dark and the table or whatever, the shins, with the Alex, like Nate look at each other where Alex is just like, you gotta be kidding me. I would have loved to have seen that when he learned Rizzo's name or his nickname, I suppose, is Riz God.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alex is like low-key bitch of the jury in season 49.
Yeah.
like when Rizzo played the idol, he was the one that was just shaking his head. And he was also, like, because of the way he went out, like front and center as well. So I feel like he was also sort of like the litmus test as to like, all right, if I'm winning over Alex, then I think I'm winning over everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so good.
All right. Well, let's get into some of our final 5 here. We've got 5 preseason predictions to read through, Liana. I mean, we're on the same page. Now, look, I think you and I are both impartial enough that I think we could come to a consensus as to how we did. If anything, if it's a split decision, we'll have the audience decide. But let's go through in order of their elimination, starting with our 5th place finisher, Christina. How did you think Christina was going to do in the preseason?
Yep. So I had Christina making the jury. I said that Christina enters the game as the social butterfly on Hina, effortlessly bonding with everyone from the Game Sharks to Matt by allowing even Jason,
and even Matt.
And even Matt. Well, because the 4 of them were in the Game Sharks. The other 4. By allowing Steven, Jason, Sophie, and MC to believe she is a loyal number, she quietly nurtures side relationships, so Christina survives the early post-merge chaos untouched. However, as the Hina members dwindle, Christina's threat becomes less about strategy and more about jury appeal. Everybody likes her, everybody trusts her. So, recognizing this, the remaining power players agree Christina is a problem best solved immediately. Her ally was everyone, parentheses, early merge. Her enemy was everyone, parentheses, late merge.
Okay, dividing the 2 sets of everyone. You all, everybody. All right, well, I also had Christina making the jury. So this might come down to Samantha semantics here. Christina will hit the ground stumbling, talking about how uncomfortable she feels in the jungle. But she finds her element not in the elements, but the people around her. The self-proclaimed social nerd endears herself immediately to the rest of the tribe. We're treated to a sequence where really everyone on Hina talks about how much they love her. Unfortunately, due to the difficulty of editing a social game that doesn't culminate in a win, Christina's edit will be surprisingly purple. Call it a combination of only going to tribal once in the pre-merge and not being at the hub of strategy. But after the season, we'll get plenty of players saying that had Christina found her way in the final 3, she would have won. Christina gets taken on a trip to the sanctuary, but on this occasion, this is where sad things happen.
Oh, no!
Christina reads a letter from her family, which sends her mind back home. In that moment, she chooses to open up to both the players in the audience about the tragic loss of her mother, leaving everyone crying in this club condo. Christina gets taken out as an easy target in the mid-merge due to the threat she possesses with her immense likability. And true to what she promises in the preseason, she asks the finalists if they can name her children.
Oh!
So I remember then, September
Heyo.
Mike, should have told December Mike about this. Her closest allies were Steven and MC, and her enemy was nobody, and that's the problem.
Yeah. I would give it to you solely for the question thing. Like,
I not to like do too much of a back pat here, but yeah, I think that moves the needle over. Though I do love the sanctuary where sad things happen.
Where sad things happen. I'm actually so here for the sanctuary where blank things happen, and we can just put in what.
Can we do a Mad Lib of this? Like so it's like the sanctuary where I don't know, where greedy things happen, where salacious things happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think each time there's a different reward, we have to come up with a different adjective to describe where
I like that better than the colon response. I don't like the Jeff fill in the blank because it almost then sort of repeats, I think, the popular opinion that like things have gotten too copy and paste, where literally you're asking the players to copy and paste. So I like to throw them on their toes, Jeff. Be like, to the sanctuary, and they go, where good things happen. Like, no, where brazen things happen.
Yeah,
And that's
'cause that's
also,
what today.
you know what that is? Okay, let me roll with this a little bit more. Let me cook
Okay,
a
let's
little
hear
bit
it. Let
on
me
this
hear. Let me
because
hear.
remember the whole strenuous journey thing? How one
Yes.
choice of word completely changed how everyone felt about it, and they sent Steven on it. Why can't Jeff do that from his perspective, right?
I like that. I like that. And then maybe it'll change the perception of what the sanctuary is that day. And you're just like,
Yes.
oh,
They're like, "Oh my god, wait a minute. If this is abrasive good things happening, like, do I want to bring my friends here or should I be bringing my enemies here where we can talk things out?"
exactly, exactly. So, okay, I think we'll implement this obviously for season 50. Come on, Jeff. Let's time travel a little bit. I would love to see that. That would be so fun.
All right. Let's go to the man, the myth, the
Mhm.
legend, RIZGOD, Rizgod baby. Now, I mentioned that I should have stuck to my guns a little bit more in my thoughts in
Mhm.
the preseason compared to what my expectations were going into the finale. And let's take a look at my gun rack right now because I had Rizzo making the finale
Mhm.
and I had him going out in Final Four fire making.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, your reaction, Liana, seems to make it seem like we're going down to semantics once again, but let's read what
Yeah.
I had to say in the meantime. In,
Okay.
in one of the biggest shocks of the season, Rizzo is somehow able to keep his persona of the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOD, Riz God baby, under wraps. Instead, he quickly endears himself to his tribe after winning the fight for supplies, successfully
Mm.
playing up his role as the wisecracking 25-year-old. I will note here that I did watch the events of the premiere on the island, so I already knew he won the fight for supplies. So
Okay,
do not
cheater. We're removing that.
do not give me credit. I'm starting in a hole right now. Rizzo's secret confidence, however, allows him to lock in
Mm.
early with Savannah. The two work together to undercut the rest of the tribe to find the Uli idol. After sitting on their hands with an easy Shannon vote, Rizzo and Savannah kick things into gear in the post-merge, deciding to both turn on Jawan and Nate for fear the
Mm.
latter was holding on to something, parentheses besides his secret Marvel career. Despite bleeding their own numbers, Rizzo and Savannah lock in a key ally in Sophie B. The trio, plus Steven as a fourth in the fake Space Force alliance, are able to run roughshod over the second half of the pre-merge, to the extent where Rizzo doesn't even need to play the idol until a throwaway at the final five. Like Christina, Rizzo will also be taken to the sanctuary, where he gets to read letters from his parents and brother. It's then we see
Where's
a
that things happen?
Yes, it's then where we see a mortal side to the Riz God as he opens up about the struggles his family has had. When Steven wins the final immunity challenge, Rizzo confidently states that he'll need to be doing the taxes soon on his $1 million earnings. Good thing he already has experience from his parents. So he's absolutely gobsmacked when Steven betrays their bro code, sending the two tightest
Ooh.
allies of the game into fire against each other. Rizzo was able to light his edit ablaze, getting the most confessionals this season. The same cannot be said for his fire making skills. He falls at the final four, revealing his full Riz God moniker to a shocked and confused jury. His ally was Savannah, his enemy was eventually Steven, but generally hubris.
Okay, interesting. So here's mine. I also had Rizzo making the finale. I also had Rizzo going out in fire making. So here's what I wrote for Rizzo. Rizzo is perceived as the goofy, charismatic younger brother, delivering great confessionals and acting as a magnet for the camera. Meanwhile, while Rizzo is building relationships, he also demonstrates his strategic power by slowly
Flower.
planning his big move after he finds the idol on Uli.
Jesus Christ.
But difference here. With the vote, when the votes finally stacked against him, Rizzo shocks the jury by correctly playing a hidden immunity idol on himself, single-handedly sending Sage to the jury and blowing up the S-axis endgame plans. However, his luck runs out at Final Four when Rizzo is sent into fire making and loses in a blaze of glory. Jeff creams his pants over Rizzo's successful idol play, and going out as a fallen angel in fire makes him a no-brainer to bring back for season 50. His ally was the idol, and his enemy was fire.
Oh my god, creams his pants. I
He
don't know if
does.
you remember early in the episode when they were doing the advantage scramble and Savannah's like, I'm creaming all of them. And it's like, I get it, Savannah. Like that term was popular about 30 years ago. I fear the
Yeah.
kids have unfortunately brought about a more lascivious connection to it.
No creaming, no cracking. There's things we just can't do anymore, kids.
Exactly. Okay, well, this is interesting. I mean, we both had his position going out the same. You did
I
talk
feel
about
like
using the idol and the S axis.
yes. So I think I would give it to you based on using the idol with little fanfare at Final Five, and I think the relationship with picking up Sophie B as well. I think
Okay,
those things I would give to you.
another pat. Let me reveal a little bit of exclusive intel here as well from
Ooh.
season 50. So, first off, I will preface this when I actually release the interviews as well. But when talking with Savannah and Rizzo on the island, they were not allowed to tell us specifics about season 49.
Mm,
But because I had interviewed them, a couple months prior, they
yeah.
had asked me, like, how did you think we did? And I looked Rizzo in the eye and I said, I think that you made a big cut in the game. I think you were able to, as you mentioned, like talk up this character in confessionals, but not bring it to the island. And I think you
Mhm.
probably went out in something like Final Four fire making. And I reached out to
Gag.
him about it after the finale aired. It's in all caps, like, I knew it. And he said, not gonna lie, like when you said that, I thought someone tipped you off as to what happened.
Oh, but I mean, again, I think there's a reason why you and I were on the same page, and I don't want to spoil our winners, but our winners, I'm pretty sure, are both Savannah. So it's like you and I both were like, okay, here's the information we know. We know they're on 50. How do they get on 50? Right. So
Yeah.
for me, I was like, well, Savannah wins, and Rizzo has to be some big player, probably an idol, probably Final Four fire making. And I have to imagine like you were probably in the same boat when you were, thinking about how these players would have done. So it's not really surprising to me, albeit very funny that we both ended up with basically the same prediction.
All right. Well, we shall see if these outcomes will get a little bit more separate
Yeah.
as we get into our third place finisher, Sage. Because
Hmm.
Sage presented herself as a character almost immediately, both in the season and the preseason proper. So, how did you feel Sage was going to do, though, when push came to shove, when pimples
Yeah,
came to popping?
that's right. Keep them in a jar. I said that Sage would make the jury. I said that Sage utilized her facade of being an emotional weirdo and quickly tapped into her sneaky side, quickly plotting the downfall of her enemies. To execute her orders, she formed a tight bond with Savannah and Sophie, creating the S-Axis alliance, who let Jake be the puppet front man while they ran the table behind the scenes.
Okay.
Sage is all but guaranteed for the finale until the consensus target Rizzo plays a hidden immunity idol and casts the sole vote to send Sage to the jury. Sage found the beware advantage early on Uli, but knowing her weakness, chose to leave it behind, favoring knowledge over power.
Ah!
I know, which is like, oh my god. Her allies Savannah and Sophie, a lot wrong there.
Yeah, I listen, again, this is why we do these things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I
Oh my god.
also had Sage making the jury. We are splitting
Okay.
hairs over the course of
Okay.
this, Liana. So I said, true to her emotionally driven superpower, Sage immediately
Mm.
starts trying to connect with her Uli tribe members on a deep level. While Shannon
Mm.
is incredibly on her wavelength, her behavior begins to unnerve the others, who maybe don't want to tell basically a complete stranger about the last time they cried. Unfortunately, the answer Sage can give to that question is the Shannon boot. Despite knowing the votes were coming her way, she refuses to do what she believes is compromising their relationship. She does not trade in her morality, but perhaps she does her standing in the tribe. Banking on her military experience, Sage will go into recon mode, covering herself in dirt and hiding in a bush to try to overhear a conversation between Nate and Jawan. The effort is about as inconspicuous as Sage herself. The hits keep on coming for Sage as she's shocked to find Rizzo and Savannah turn their backs on the rest of the Uli and taking out Nate and Jawan.
Mm.
Her back against the wall yet again, she pleads to the others to not trust the gruesome twosome and even attempts to make a fake idol to stave them away. But the merged tribe decides the Survivor 49 Spice Cabinet could use a little less Sage in it. Her ally was Shannon, and her enemy was Rizzo and Savannah.
If only she had more time, Mike.
I'm going to give this one to you because I think that I was way off with the Shannon stuff. Really anchoring her entire pre-merge on her love for Shannon was already missing the mark.
Yeah. I think both of us had a few elements that were correct. I think the tipping off about Rizzo and Savannah was there for you, but I think both of us kind of had this idea of like, yeah, she's going to be this quirky weirdo, but then we didn't really know how that would manifest with other players. I think both of us were kind of off on that, but I will happily accept the point to make this at least maybe somewhat of a fair fight.
There we go. Well, you never know. Again, Sophie B can
It's
come
true.
behind to win anything. Anything is
It's
possible.
true.
And let's talk about the woman
Mhm,
herself, Sophie Balerdi. So I had Sophie be in the final three.
mhm,
So I I love that
mm,
knowing nod, Liana. Keep
yep.
on splitting those hairs, folks. Sophie, I said, they say there's plenty of fish in the sea. And Sophie B immediately finds her whale when Jake lands on Kella Beach. She jumps into her remorse strategy as the two lock in, making a final two on day one. Jake brings Alex in to form a tight trio, but Sophie doesn't have nearly as warm a welcome for the DC resident. In fact, when she sees him take off out of camp one day, she decides to start tailing him, and sneaky Sophie's nosiness pays
Ooh.
off as she finds the beware advantage right from under Alex's nose. While the Kella Cool Kids, parentheses, please don't spell that out again, enjoy a comfortable, strategically yet uncomfortable challenge wise pre merge, they get hit hard at the merge when Jake is taken out immediately.
Mm.
Desperate for a new number one, Sophie finds a new big fish in Savannah. The two are finally able to connect after eyeing each other preseason as the short queens lock in with Rizzo. At a certain point, the rest of the competition will be eyeing this trio not only as looming threats, but untrustworthy ones at that. When Alex spills the info about her idol, it puts her firmly in everyone's crosshairs. Showing a fiery side we hadn't seen prior, Sophie becomes the next to commit tribe on tribe violence. She successfully plays her idol and has her alliance bounce the votes onto Alex, making her the last Kella standing. This proves to be the only obstacle for Sophie and her allies as they roll over the rest of the competition to get her all the way to the final three. She uses her stump time to stump for herself, stump time, to the jury, opening up about her history of the show with her late grandmother and how that no chances wasted mindset carried into her strategy. Choosing between to Sophie B or not to Sophie B,
Oh
they
no.
unfortunately choose the latter, being more impressed overall with the games of Steven and Savannah. Despite finishing the season in third and her dreams of owning a McDonald's at least temporarily paused, she does get a consolation prize, owning a plurality stake at a Checkers in Miami Beach. Her ally was Jake, then Savannah, and her enemy was the McDonald's Corporation.
Oh no. Big Mickey D out to get her.
Those
Okay,
arches ain't so
interesting.
golden.
That's true. Not to undercut myself, but I think you've got this. Albeit I did have the exact same placements for Sophie. Not only did I
Oh,
have her in the finale, the final three, but also the third place loser. But I think you had a lot more of those details there, but I'll give you mine anyway. Sophie forms early bonds with Jake and then brings Alex into the siblings alliance, happily letting Jake take the heat while she stays insulated come merge. As the game progresses, Sophie adapts without ever committing, floating between alliances and always landing on the right side of the boat.
no.
Her elite people pleasing game keeps her protected, but by the finale, her greatest skill, avoiding responsibility for the vote outs, becomes her fatal flaw, as the
Mm.
jury realizes she survived by never needing to make or own a decision. In the
Oh.
final tribal, Sophie is perceived as the perfect seed filler, likable, harmless, and completely drawing dead. Her ally was Jake, and her enemy was the jury.
Oh, I mean, that enemy applied
So
to a certain extent.
yeah, there were elements that were there, but I think overall you were probably closer.
All right, I will take that there. But listen, there's still a chance to finish 3-2 here
Okay,
because
let's go.
Liana Boris, you and I have hinted about this for too long. Much like Savannah being on 50 herself, the info is finally out there for public consumption. Both
Mhm.
you and I picked Savannah Louie to
Yep.
win Survivor 49. I want to hear from you first because this is a stake that I claimed, much like Sophie's, I suppose, in that future Checkers property from the preseason. But what about her that made you decide to lock in with her as well?
I knew who she replaced. That was the biggest. So I had
Ah,
known what the original cast list was for 50, and then I knew who got pulled. It happened to be another female winner from the new era. So for me, I just put two and two together between it was like, well, Rizzo wins or Savannah wins, or both of them just make
or
a
both of
big
them win.
splash. But yeah, I think so that was the biggest thing that tipped me off. What about you?
I'm honestly, it was vibes. Like, and
Just
I
vibes.
and I will say as well, I'm more often we'll go over this a little bit wrong than I am right. When I personally like to go for a winner pick, I tend to kind of get my hands around a person who's in like a very specific type of field. I picked Savannah this season, former reporter. I picked Sam Phelan for 47,
Mm.
sideline reporter, NFL beat reporter. I picked Tevin for Survivor 46. Actor, I picked Kelly Nalbandian for season 45. Nurse practitioner, I picked Jam
Mhm.
Jam for season 44. Salon owner, I like to pick these roles that have people essentially having a day to day that is formulated around a certain number of ideals, interpersonal relationships, being able to make bonds intensely quickly with people, to have them
Yeah.
trust you in some way, shape, or form, being incredibly open and efficient with communication. I think those are just generally very good skills to have in a survivor player that will do at least pretty well every single
Mhm.
time. And so maybe that's a little biased as well as a fellow journalist, but that was something that I really got from Savannah, that she was an incredibly, if maybe blunt, but efficient communicator. And I feel like those interviewing skills, especially, are just so
Yeah.
handy to have. Like, I cannot talk enough about the number of conversations I have had with people I do not know from a hole in the wall by being able to find small things to connect with them over and just digging in with them further and allowing them to open up and bridge that relationship super easily, super early on. It's so tantamount to games like this. So I had glommed onto that. And I think on top of that, watching Uli do at least pretty well early on in that first episode, I'm like, okay, I think Savannah's going to make at least make it to the merge. There's a chance she gets looked at as a big target, but if she's able to make it to the end game, I think it's hers to lose.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's actually so funny that it's like, oh, but she didn't remember the name. Like, to go back to Christina's question, but it's not all about that, right? It's about being able to like create that bond and quickly connect with somebody about what's important to them. So for Alex, like what's important to him, his work's important to him, so she can connect over that, right? It's not all about like the family per se. So that's really interesting that you kind of tapped into that. And I think that that is always a good way to pick a winner, is somebody who's just always around people, always talking to people, having to quickly create bonds with people. Like that's the skills that you're really looking for.
All right. So, Liana, how did you think Savannah's skills were going to measure up? What is your winner story for Savannah
Yes.
in 49? What is your French vanilla fantasy?
Okay, so here's what I wrote. I said that Savannah easily creates bonds on early Uli, never really in danger in the pre merge. Come merge, she leverages those relationships and others to create the S axis with Sage and Sophie, using Jake as the loud front man while quietly managing relationships and vote timing behind the scenes. Even after Rizzo's idol play blows up the alliance and sends Sage to jury, Savannah adapts without panic, recentering herself and positioning Rizzo as the final big boss. When
Oh.
Savannah wins the final immunity challenge, she
Oh.
throws herself into fire making against
Oh.
the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOT, Riz God Baby, winning and ultimately securing her spot 2 times in the final tribal council. She enters final tribal as the decided victor, taking home all but 1 vote.
Oh, wow.
Her ally was the S axis, and her enemy was the cast of season 50 when they hear about what she did.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Yeah,
First off, I just had to stop down and say Cub merge.
I know, right?
Oh boy.
Come merge.
Listen, if I had a nickel for every party I've gone to that ended with a Cub merge. But the other side of it is, yeah, interesting that she would pull the under. But I want to stop down for a second and talk about maybe one of the bigger commonalities between a lot of the exit press that's happened in this particular final five, which is the
Mm.
who wins in the end if Savannah's taken out. Like, Sophie had said that she was nearly going to Underwood herself and sent herself in against Savannah to take her down. And she claims that if it was her, Rizzo, and Sage, she would have won. Rizzo said if
Mhm.
he defeated Savannah and Fire, he would have won. Christina says that if she made it to the end, she would have won. Obviously, it's very difficult because we were not out there on the
Yeah.
island. But what is your best guess as to who might be the most correct about their opinion here in a Savannah-less final three?
Yeah, I think it's tough because again, what we heard, like we saw how well Sophie did in the final tribal and we see her get a couple votes. I think she was already sort of recovering from the knowledge is power, debacle, I guess, of
Hmm.
it all. But I think if she had won the final immunity, thrown herself in fire, I do think there could have been enough momentum there. I think for Rizzo, if he had been the one to defeat Savannah in fire making, I don't know. I just think that there maybe wasn't enough behind him, just given the fact that how much the jury kind of rolled their eyes at him with the whole idol situation. Like, it's really tough to understand whether or not the jury respected Rizzo at all. Whereas I feel
Mm.
like Sophie B could have potentially garnered more respect.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out if that Rizzo jury perception that was alluded to last week was true. Because
Hmm.
Rizzo, again, likes to talk about the fact that like he had intentionality behind these things, and I would not put it past him to be able to very effectively describe his reasoning behind all the big things that flashy things that he was doing. But it's also a little bit in the sage boat of like, okay, you could do that, but would that actually sway the jury's opinion of you at all?
Exactly.
And Steven certainly indicated the way that he felt the jury was feeling about Rizzo. Sophie has said that she has asked the jury proper, and that if even Rizzo beats Savannah in fire making, that she would still win.
Yeah.
So I still think that Sophie, it could honestly be the opposite of what this final three is, where Sophie would still win, but Rizzo could put forward enough of a performance to get like Savannah's vote, obviously, and then like maybe one or two other people to vote for him.
Yeah. I think they would probably just swap, right? So I think, and because I think like the underdog story for Sophie B is probably more powerful. And I think
And
that she probably would have won.
and I think there's also the idea that like it's almost the opposite of the Cassidy Jesse thing, where it's like, yes, Sophie didn't actually go into fire making to take down Savannah, but again, I think it is a big move for her to say, I was rolling with these people the entire time, but I put them into fire. Because I knew
Mhm.
Savannah wouldn't do well. I sealed her fate. And so maybe then the fire making win that Rizzo would be able to say could be obfuscated a bit by that.
Yeah. 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 I think that there's also a way, like you said, like it's all about the perception, right? How do you argue around that? But also, again, I don't know. I just feel like that jury would have given Rizzo the money.
All right. Well, let me get into my thoughts about the person who did get the jury's money
Mm.
in Savannah, who, yes, was my winner pick. I said, let me give you the scoop on how Savannah Louie made the front
No.
page of the Survivor 49 Chronicle, taking home a resounding victory. You could take the girl out of the newsroom, but Savannah is more than happy to bring her journalistic skills to the beach. Her interviewing acumen and general interest in people allows her to connect easily with the rest of Uli. Izuli, perhaps, putting her at the hub of the tribe early on. However, the person she ends up connecting the most with is Rizzo. The two bond over their love of more nefarious, chaotic gameplay, being creatively strategic, as well as their respective yet burgeoning sense of confidence in themselves. Savannah's pre-merge storyline will primarily revolve around her growing annoyance with Nate and Jawan. Her preseason perceptions about the fedora wearer, combined with suspicions that he was withholding information about a journey, put a hat on a hat, as she maligns not having much of a chance to go after them due to Uli's challenge success. When the game goes individual, Savannah chooses to take that literally. Despite Uli having a whopping 5 out of 11 people when the jury starts, she takes advantage of a split tribal council to turn over an Uli new leaf, parentheses, is that anything? I guess it's like a slant rhyme. Emphasis on slant. She and Rizzo turn an easy majority onto Jawan, then finish the job by taking out Nate and Sage. Luckily, Savannah is able to switch out red for blue in her ally Ensemble. She and Sophie B get the chance to finally meet up after talking about each other in the preseason. They immediately click, and she's able to bring her over to her side. What's more, when the spotlight is brightest on them, a correct idol play, and one in Rizzo's pocket as a precaution, along with a Hina implosion, swings the game in her favor. As the days grow longer, Savannah's fuse gets shorter. Despite doing her best to maintain a professional attitude, her negativity begins to wear on her face, as she becomes increasingly frustrated with people like MC and Steven interfering with her plans. This is most palpable on day 25. Having lost the final immunity challenge by seconds, she has a hashtag survivor breakdown, knowing there's a chance she could fall just short after all the work she put in. Luckily, when she is predictably put into fire, it's up against her partner in crime, someone whose confidence falls apart like a stick TP at the final four. Facing the jury on day 26, Savannah is partially criticized for talking up her game, as well as what some feel was an unnecessary betrayal of her old tribe. However, her dominant gameplay, coupled with some key relationships on the jury, truly make this the year of Savannah, as she's handily given the win. Savannah will continue to expand her bank account after the $1 million surplus by making a killing on Cameo, as people request she gives them a confessional-style roasting. Savamios will be the hot ticket item in Q1 of 2026. Her ally was Rizzo, and her enemy was Nate, Jawan, and Sage.
Oh my God. Okay, so two things there. One, I can absolutely see Savannah being like, I will PayPal you $10,000 if you bring me into the final tribal. And second of all, when you were doing the newspaper jokes, I was absolutely expecting a black, white, and red all over because they're the red tribe kind of joke. So I'm a little disappointed in you, Mike. But I will say, I do think, not to, again, to shoot myself in the foot, but I think that there were just more.
Wouldn't it be Survivor 49 if someone wasn't shooting themselves in the foot?
I know, right? It's a we're just wrapping up the season the way the season was done. So I do think that you had more details there that accurately represented Savannah's game.
So since it was just the two of us, Liana, I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of navel gazing. That's actually, you know what? Maybe that's the better term. We're just like, this looks nice. Well, as I've talked about a number of times, believe it or not, Liana, this is the 15th season we've done of the B&B. We started in a moment that Jeff Probst mentioned for some reason about Chrissy Hoffbeck, having Ben win Final Four fire making. You have to imagine that people like Chrissy and Rick Devens were pretty far in 50 casting at this point, right? If not outright confirmed, because it's just a reminder of who these people are.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I think absolutely. That was not random. That was done on purpose.
Well, ever since we started the B&B, Liana, you and I have tried to put ourselves out there in the best way we know how, which is writing up these ridiculous preseason predictions. I thought it could be fun because we did hit the mark, both of us, on this season, to go through just the gallery of various portraits of winners in B&B seasons past. Because I don't know, were you the type of person that would make preseason predictions rather than kind of being forced to through this podcast?
I mean, you kind of have a general sense of how you think people are going to perform and you play some reindeer games and whatnot. But no, I think I'd never done it this formally.
Oh, you said reindeer games for a second.
Reindeer games. I just love. When's the Survivor reindeer games coming? I need it.
People were asking about that 2 years ago.
What?
Yeah, people were like, where's the Survivor version? Imagine Colby and Ozzy and Jonathan. And I'm like, just wait for Survivor 50.
Yeah, exactly. Just wait till you guys have it coming. Yeah. So this was the first time especially having to, I think, write out the whole story also of the season. That's always been a very fun exercise to sort of, try to put the pieces together and then to see how it differs sometimes significantly when it actually plays out.
All right, so forgive us for being a little self-serving here. It's like an hour, 20 minutes for you, maybe 5 minutes for us. But I thought it would be fun to go over the past 15 seasons of winner picks, Liana, and see, were we on the mark? Were we off the mark? Were we close to the mark? So let's start with the aforementioned Triple H. Remind me, I am pretty sure that I had Ben and you had Chrissy. No?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull them up now. I had Chrissy Hoffbeck as my winner pick, which it's so funny now knowing she's on 50. I'm like, come on, make my winner pick accurate.
I was going to say, you could make it again. You could double down right now, or you could spread out your options and pick anyone but Chrissy.
I know, exactly. Yeah, well, statistically, I've got a better chance if I pick literally... Can I just pick, the other 23 players?
I don't know if we can do Chrissy versus the field. This next one, if I'm remembering correctly, so you and I were pretty dang remarkable to start, right? We got number 1 and number 2. And then we have, I would imagine, the worst miss that we have throughout 15 seasons is that you and I are very rarely on the same page. Savannah is really the only exception, besides, if I recall correctly, Morgan Ricky, the third boot from Survivor Ghost Island.
No, that was your pick.
I thought we both picked Morgan Ricky.
No, mine's way worse. I picked Hot Cop Dan.
No, that's David versus Goliath.
Oh, wait, what season are we talking about?
Ghost Island.
Oh, Ghost Island. Oh, yeah, no, I think, we definitely had the same pick on that one. Oh, yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, for those that may not remember, that was the dolphin trainer, I think, who gets not swap screwed, but we had James Lim is able to flip the Navidi majority onto each other, and her and Dom and Wendell are left out of the vote.
Yeah, third boot. Yeah.
All right. Well, you moved on to David versus Goliath. You picked a Goliath in Hot Cop Dan.
What a mistake. I think that's worse. I'd rather pick Morgan
Well,
over and over
listen,
again.
my mistake, perhaps from a character perspective and a longevity perspective, was a little better, and of course, from a friend perspective, was even better. I did pick Gabby Pascuzzi.
Oh, wait, that's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, because I think it was like, when she described the way technical writing worked, I think it was very much like, okay, this is again going back to
Mhm.
my well of like, this is interpersonal. She's able to, I think she said on the episodes, right? Like she's able to speak nerd language to them, and there were a
Yeah.
fair amount of nerds on David versus Goliath. And listen, certainly did not expect her to go out the way that she did. So we're working our way a little bit from the Morgan, Ricky, Nadir.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
All right. Survivor Edge of Extinction. I had one Gavin, who, in some people's
Oh.
perspectives, thought should have won Survivor Ghost Island. I'm sorry, Edge of Extinction.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, who did I had Julia
Yes, was that the
as my
medical
winner?
science connection?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, and she sat next to War Goat.
Well, that's a good call. I should look up who the rest of the final three were as well.
That's so funny.
Well, what about
Um,
everyone's season that we look fondly upon, Island of the Idols? Who was your pick to win 39?
oh my god, I have to find who is my winner. Do Jamal maybe? Hold on.
So I know mine
Was it
was Jamal. I feel like you may
okay?
have
I
picked
had
somebody else.
Lauren Beck, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Basil?
I don't have my winner noted, so I'm having to
From
actually. I just have
Swimmer?
the finale. So I had Jamal, Elizabeth, Elaine, Lauren Beck, and Kelly Kim in the finale.
Might have been
But I don't
Lauren
remember.
Beck.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to read this. The point is, the point is that this was also way off.
So I had a final three in Edge of Extinction. I'm reading it now of
Oh,
Gavin, Kelly, and Aurora. Remember Aurora?
yeah. Remember Aurora? That it's just so funny sometimes to look back on these seasons and like I somehow picture it so clearly, and then also I'm like, wait, who is that again? Because my winner was Jack.
Oh, your winner was Jack. You weren't even.
He-
So he was the other member of the finale that
I
you didn't even
had him
talk about?
down on his own little section. So,
Oh.
yeah. So, yeah, we all remember Jack, right? Wasn't he like
Well, yeah, so my final
mid-merge
yes, he was before the merge. He probably
before the
is more
merge?
remembered for his relationship with Elizabeth after the
Yeah,
season.
exactly.
My final three for Island of the Idols was Jamal, Elizabeth, and Missy. I think I had Missy
Oh,
being
interesting.
like the zero vote finalist. Like she made a bunch of big moves, but everyone was mad at her.
Yeah, okay. I could see that.
All right, winners at war. Now, this is something that you and I were very upfront about because
Mhm.
maybe in a podcast that neither you or I want anyone to remember, we did a draft in that preseason when the cast was announced. And I think we sort of made our pseudo winner picks there. Correct me if I'm wrong, unless you
Mhm.
changed your mind. So I had picked Tyson Apostle.
Mhm. I picked Denise.
And listen, you made it further than I did for what it's worth.
Yeah, I guess that's a win for me. But yeah, yeah, when is it? I wrote it as M effing war. That's what I titled the folder in my
You were
notes.
pumped.
I was so pumped. And I also this was the season that I was so off on the fire tokens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
So
I forgot about it. It ended up with like 40.
I have some people. Wendell managed to get 303. Oh my God, Sandra had almost 5,000 fire tokens. I just
Wow.
didn't understand the scale of the fire tokens.
Liana, you were like predicting crypto with just how useless yet
I know.
inflationary currency can be.
Just you guys wait. The Island of the Idols coin's gonna go hard.
All right, Survivor 41. We have officially entered the new era, and with it, a new era of prediction. So, yeah, I mean, again, we really hit the ground running with Chrissy and Ben. I like get there somewhat again with Gavin, but otherwise maybe a little
Mm.
bit off the pulse. But does our tune change with the new era? So my pick was Ricard. I
I
felt like again going back to like the okay, job day to day is all about interacting with people, building quick relationships. And so I had him sitting next to, I believe it was two of the first three boots of the season in Sarah
Ooh.
and David Voce.
Yeah. Okay. I had Chantel. I was like, or yeah,
Shan.
Shan. I had Shan because I was like super enamored with her. I remember listening to her interview and being like, oh, she's so charismatic. I was just immediately taken with her. Maybe should have picked my own namesake, but here we are.
I mean, listen, you were right to do so, considering like she was for a good portion of the season.
I know. I had my hopes up there for a bit.
All right, moving on to Survivor
Ugh.
42. Liana, you are sighing in disgust at the moment.
I
Why
had
is that?
Omer.
Oh,
Nobody tell him. It's embarrassing. I don't want him to know that I rated him so high.
oh, okay. You don't want him to look favorably upon you, or vice versa.
Yeah, no, I don't want him to think that I look favorably upon him.
Yeah. So, what did you remember the story for him?
Let's see. He stays in the nexus of power, finds an idol, but never has to play it. He's our second Canadian winner. Go Canada.
You were close with the
That's all I
Canadian
wrote.
winner.
Yeah.
I picked. No, I should say I picked, but I really copped out here. I was like, the new era is so wild and chaotic. It's like a brand steal. So let me run a brand steal of Survivor 42. Now, it did pick Lindsay for the winner, which I wasn't completely mad at. But it was much more off the mark with things like having both Omer and Marianne pre-jury. It did predict that Mike Turner would finish as a runner-up, but I believe the third person in that final three was Mariah.
Okay. Yeah, I also had Mike Turner as a runner-up. I had Marianne actually going out in fire.
Wow, that's wild considering how much of like a surprise loss in the moment Mike's was, that we both kind of pegged that he would somehow come up short.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's something about maybe owning his game. No one respects his strategic game, feels he was outplayed by Omer, but he's a very magnetic personality. So
true and true. All right. Survivor 43. I believe this is another one where you and I were both on the same page. Correct me if I'm wrong. We both picked Jesse on this one.
Yes. Yep. And also I wrote not a prediction. He just a reminder, he watched Survivor New Zealand. So I had him very highly rated for that fact.
Cards up for that guy. So I also believe that I think the final three was Jesse. I think Ellie was in the runner-up position because it was honestly what we talked about with Sage. Stop me before with the therapist social worker perspective, where it's like she made these close bonds with everyone, but then cut their throats. And then I had Lindsay Carmine as the second runner-up in the classic mom position of like, oh my God, I can't believe she voted me out. Don't get my vote.
Yeah, okay. Funny note, I had Carla getting the knowledge is power and manages to break the curse by stealing an extra vote from Dwight.
Do you think knowledge is power will show up in 50, and will the curse be reversed?
Oh my God. I don't know. That's a deep-seated curse. It's certainly how it feels. So I don't know. Good luck on that one if anybody ends up getting it. But now it's going to be rebranded to the, I don't know, insert celebrity name here. Knowledge is power.
The Jenna Fisher knowledge is power.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's move on to 44, shall we? Survivor 44. And now, finally, after giving for so long, I finally get to receive in the form of yet another correct winner pick, as I did pick Jam Jam for the winner. And I had Carolyn also making the final three alongside Franny. And I think the story was that like Franny was able to make a lot of big moves. She was arguably the bigger strategic threat out of that final three, but people were just so burned by her. Some of you heard that before, where like she was so goofy and enthusiastic, and people were like, this is a different side of you. I don't know who you are. That Jam Jam, who again is much more openly authentic and himself, his social play wins the day.
Yeah, I had Carolyn as the winner for basically same reasons, that she was just so authentically herself that the jury wanted to reward that.
All right, Survivor 45. Who you got? Liana?
D.
D. Oh, you got D. Nice.
D. Yes. So yeah. I mean,
Who
I'm
was
just
sitting
gonna
next to her?
on to that one forever.
Yes. Yes. Who was sitting next to her in the final three?
Jake and Julie.
Ooh.
And I actually had Emily losing in fire, which is interesting.
That's interesting. Hopefully not foreshadowing for season
Oh, no.
450. I had Kelly Nalbandian, as I mentioned, winning. I did have Jake in the final three, and I had Julie as well. I think I really wanted to just stereotype like older woman makes final three and loses, even though we have like barely gotten that in the new era at all.
Yeah, that is funny how both of us we had the exact same final three. I don't know what it was that we were reading about those two that we were like, no, you're gonna make it really far, but you're gonna lose.
All right. Well, did that rub off on the chaos that was Survivor 46? So I mentioned it before. I had Tevin as my first place fisher. Mike, you have to stop doing this. I put Maria in second place, and I put Ben as our 0 vote finalist, which did end up happening.
That's interesting. I had Maria also in my final three. My winner was Tiffany. And Tevin was actually
okay. Good. Now here's the thing. Are you going to hope that Chrissy wins or Tiffany wins, considering that they can make up for this now?
I'm just gonna say both because I'm gonna double my odds.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if either one of them win season 50, then I count that as a win previous when I made that prediction, whether it be 35 or 46. So we're just going to go ahead and retrospectively claim that.
All right, Survivor 47. I remember this one just because it was only last year. I didn't even need to open up my notes. Sam Phelan, as I said, won. And I remember specifically it was a Sue, Teeny, Sam final three. I said that because things were so up in the air, one person from each original tribe sat at the finals, and Sam ends up taking it all.
Okay. I had Tiana as my winner with Annika and Gabe as the two losing finalists.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know how that happened. Teeny went out in fire. I'll take that one.
Oh, look at that. You hang your hat on that. Previous guest, Teeny. All right. Survivor 48. Liana, who did you pick as the most recent winner before this season?
I had Joe.
Oh, you got so close.
Again, let's go, Joe. Joe wins. I count it. I had Joe sitting next to Eva and David, actually, Mr. Giga Chad himself.
Yes. How can we forget about Giga Chad? I do feel like low key, maybe if we see like a returning player season in the future, I would not be surprised considering how much we have sort of like expended the 48 well so quickly. If David shows up there, just considering how unique of a character he was. Remember when he stood up when Mary was booted?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know, I need to rewatch 48. I need to see how that holds up on a rewatch. I think there's like moments I see so crystal clearly, and I'm sure there's a ton of bits that I like have completely forgotten. So I don't want to like pigeonhole that season into just those few moments that I remember.
No, but it's also a good point because I think that's another one on the week to week that had a post-merge that people were like, what are we doing? Why is no one going for Joe and Eva? And I wonder if when we're watching in retrospect, and especially hearing more of Kyle and Camilla's perspective as to why they didn't, it gives you a bit more appreciation rather than having to stop down every 6 days with your hands just permanently in the air.
Yeah, exactly. And just be frustrated for 6 days of the week.
I had Shaheen as the winner, but he was in a final three, I believe, with Kyle and Eva. I want to say maybe it was Chrissy and Eva. So again, pretty much circling the drain around that. And then we get Survivor 49. And then in due time, Liana, we will get your winner prediction, I'm sure, for Survivor 50, which is wild. I mean, you could go with the ultimate cop-out and say any of the other 3 people that I previously picked, but I want you to innovate here.
I know. Well, now I'm thinking, I think I'm just going to diversify. So I'm not going to repick someone I've already picked because obviously I'm covered on those fronts. So I already have 3 people. So we know it's not going to be Chrissy. We know it's not going to be Dee. We know it's not going to be Joe. So it's got to be someone outside of that. I don't know. I got to think long and hard about it. Obviously we did the draft like way back when, before they already played, which I'm
Right.
sure it'll be released to the general public soon. So I'll have to go back and look at my draft board from that and potentially use that to influence what I think is going to happen.
I'll do one more looking at our predictions here, and I'll go more recent. Before the season, you and I went through some superlatives, as we always do. I'll go quickly through this because I know we're already running a little long on time. Most likely to get a personal segment, you said Matt, and I said Jake. I think Jake makes sense even from the very limited time that he had on screen. He was pretty much all personal segment, shoe stealing, and snake bites.
Yep.
Most likely to get a purple edit, I said MC, and you said Yellow Sophie.
Oh, okay. I'll take that.
Yeah, I think you should definitely take that. And you also talked about the whole Sophie versus Sophie of it all.
Yep. I knew it was going to be a problem.
Most likely to flip on their number 1, you said Shannon, and I said Savannah. It's weird because I feel like of a season that was so topsy-turvy with people flipping, those were 2 of the people that were surprisingly the most like steadfast and loyal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like Savannah throwing Sage under the bus significantly kind of counts.
Who would qualify for this category the most? Sage, Jawan?
Yeah, probably Sage and Jawan. Christina, maybe, for voting out Steven.
Yeah, you could say
that
that.
was justified, I feel like, to a certain extent.
As well. Most likely to start a podcast or merch line. I said Shannon, you said Annie or Jawan/Nate doing a MCU podcast together.
Still waiting for that, boys.
We haven't really seen anything yet, right? I guess everyone's just gone so full cameo. I guess this is to be determined over the course of the next year or so. Most likely to get screwed over. You said MC. I said Matt. This is interesting.
I think both. Yeah, I think both of those would count.
MC, I think, got screwed over by production in multiple ways. The split tribal council and Savannah's presence, again, kind of spooking people into going with her. Matt, obviously, you had the tribe swap, which pretty much made him like a dead man walking, where it was going to be him or Jason going no matter what. I also put Alex in there, and like Alex, I would say most got screwed over by the other players in that Rizzo did that whole smear campaign against him. Even though they kept saying that he was sloppy, still haven't seen it.
Yep.
Most likely to be obsessed with milk. Really odd barometer to be determined for this one, but I said Jake and you said Steven or Sage.
I was like, what question is that? Oh, right. Mr. Giga Chad himself.
Yeah, now that the NDA is lifted, if any 49 players are listening, please let me know your cursory observations as to who was the most lactose obsessed.
Exactly. Who drank the most milk? Please, we need to know.
Most likely to write a rap about the competition. You said Alex, and I said Annie or Nicole. Remember Nicole?
I remember Nicole.
Nicole's more likely on that. Yeah, Nicole's more likely to spit water than spit a bar.
Oh, well, I was going to say the boys on a bench. That's like, it had to have been one of the boys on a bench.
Yeah, I'm only so after Alex left, they did boys on a bench.
I know, because it was what, Jawan, Rizzo, and Steven that were the boys on a bench? Yeah.
I also will say some pretty fun callbacks to, I think that maybe some moments we had reservations about throughout the season. I did like the 3 girls on the beach callback on day 26.
Yes.
And when I tell you, this was literal cinema. Jawan's confessional going into Final Tribal Council, where he talks about Act 3 of the horror movie. Who will be the final girl? Come on! That was so good! And that was an incredible way to have this be the last confessional of the season compared to him being the first confessional of the season.
Yeah, it's almost like they did that on purpose, Mike.
Do you think they like got Jawan dressed up in his red overalls and be like, all right, can you give this confessional on day 1?
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I mean, I think like if you're editing the season, you're going through the footage, you find that clip, you're like, click, note that, we're gonna use that at the end. So yeah,
it's a little reminiscent of the Carolyn bookend, right? With her starting off season 44 by talking to the producer, and then her doing it on day 26. But like, this was incredible. This was awesome. You could not script this better.
Yeah, I loved it.
And then finally, most likely to appear on the Survivor influencer experience. I think we talked about like who has the best influencer pipeline. I said Steven. I was trying to remember who you said. I had a tough time. I think you said Nate Moore, just sort of
Yeah,
like going
okay.
for
I'll
that
take that.
Occam's razor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you also said like Annie, Rizzo, Nicole, and Jake could also be in like the influencer pipeline.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
Rizzo honestly could, especially if he's appearing back to back on 50 and makes like a pretty decent run there.
yeah. I think if as long as he can get the audience for it, he's just gotta find his niche of the
I mean, I
people
think
that like.
the mark my words here, folks. The Rizcast is coming to your podcast and YouTube feeds in fall of 2026. Like,
Oh,
I think that Rob has fortunately inspired a lot of people to be able to find the resources and the talent to do their own thing. We see Rome has been doing a podcast, Gabe's been doing a
mhm.
podcast. I think Rizzo is very much in that vein. I think even if he feels fatigued from doing these 2 seasons back to back, he loves the show. He's obsessed with the show. He's going to want to talk about the show. And I think he could find the audience for that.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, look, put your heart and soul into it, Rizzo. Put your whole RIZGOD, Riz God baby energy behind it, and you'll be successful. Go for it.
All right. Well, you and I gave a lot of our thoughts on our preseason opinions, our postseason opinions. But Liana, there's one group we haven't checked in yet. One essential
Yep.
group to the
Yep.
lifeblood that is Survivor. Let's go for the last time this season and the last time in 2025 to
Mhm.
Casuals Corner.
Yeah, I think it's important to check in with Casuals Corner. We've got a little bit of an abridged version of this, but mainly because I was so curious what they thought about the promos for 50. So we'll quickly close things out with just an overall view of their thoughts of the finale of 49 before we look to the future of Survivor. So, Mike, I just have a handful of questions for you. This first one is about the 49 finale. So
Okay.
the format of this is I'm going to read two quotes. You have to tell me which one has more likes. Okay, we're trying to
Okay.
gauge the temp of how they were feeling about the finale. So, your first Casuals Corner quote is, "She deserved the win. I really disliked her and Rizzo in the beginning, but they played a good game in the end." That was comment number 1.
I'm
Comment
obviously
number 2.
referring to Savannah.
Correct. Comment number 2. Why TF would they put Rizzo and Savannah on season 50? I've never missed a season until now. She is so arrogant. It is unreal.
So I think
Which
it's
one
going
had more likes?
I think the second one is because what I have found is a surprise, maybe not a surprising opinion, but Savannah is it's tough to call her the most polarizing winner in recent memory because I think there was so much obviously around the Gabler win, as you mentioned
Mhm.
before. But I feel like from a personality perspective, she qualifies more so for that. I think I have found so many people be like, she deserved it, but I did not like her. She was a
Yeah.
mean girl. That I imagine the
Yep.
second opinion prevails here.
Yes, you're correct. That one had 93 likes compared to 27 of the other. And actually, what you said, I pulled a comment that I feel like so perfectly encapsulates the casuals' feelings towards Savannah's win, which is Savannah played great. She's also the most unlikable player we've seen in years. I never wanted someone to lose at fire making more. Congrats, I guess. That one, I think, really encapsulate at least all of the comments I've seen really kind of felt like they could recognize her win and her success, but also weren't necessarily happy about it.
Which is like a good, complex level of thinking, I would say, especially compared to that fan base that like,
Mhm.
okay, I guess I wanted her to win the most out of the final 3, but I still didn't like it. I think a lot of people took
Yeah.
umbrage with her unhappy with Sophie not accepting her pitch. The whole thing of like, is this the real Sophie?
Yeah. I think there were a few moments where I could see people turning on Savannah for that. There were some moments where she felt came across at least a little bit entitled. And I think I can see people sort of negatively responding to that.
Mhm.
So that does lead us into the next question, which is about the promo announcing that both Rizzo and Savannah were on 50. So you know that they're not happy about either Rizzo or Savannah coming back for 50, but which one are they less excited about, I suppose?
Oh, it's a
So
good question. Yeah.
here are your 2 comments. Comment number 1. I'm a watch just to see Coach put Rizzo in his place.
Oh,
Or
Coach.
yeah. Comment number 2. She already won. Should have been the guy bitten by the snake. Which I love that they
Wow.
didn't remember Jake's name, but it was the guy bitten by the snake.
But they remembered him enough to be like, he deserved it more than her.
Should have been that guy.
God, that is really an interesting would you rather, right? Like, would you rather have
Mhm.
the guy that I'm assuming they were annoyed with because of like the youngster whippersnapper attitude versus the one that, as we mentioned before, they felt that she was mean and not very positive and not really someone inspiring a lot of confidence in them, at least. I will say that they are more upset with Rizzo being on than Savannah.
That's correct. Yes. That one
Because
had more
Savannah, they could at least
likes.
say she won. She, tied a record for individual immunities. Like, if you look at that from a
Mhm.
credibility perspective, there's more there.
Yeah, there were some other comments that I feel like really encapsulates how people feel about Rizzo. So one was, I didn't realize Rizzo was 26. I thought he was 18 by the way he talks. Also, I don't know, but he has enough teeth for 3 people.
Aw,
He
come
has such a
on.
beautiful smile, so I feel really bad about that one, but also I can kind of see it, so that's funny. But no, I think they're definitely less excited for Rizzo. But what's weird is I'm actually more excited for Rizzo than I am for Savannah to come back. I mean, I'm excited for both of them to have to now play in this completely different environment with
Mhm.
completely different people. So I'm just so curious to see how that's going to play out because, to plan a newbie season is one thing, to play with players who have played 5 times is another thing.
Well, also on top of that, this is a conversation that maybe you and I are going to have much more down the line.
Mm.
What's also incredibly interesting is that the only thing people know about Rizzo is the Riz God voice clip that played at the very beginning of the 49 trailer. And that comes with an entire boatload of perception attached to
Yeah.
that. So there's also the baked in stuff of, as you mentioned, how will he play differently or similarly to 49, considering that him and Savannah had about 10 days between seasons.
That's
Can
crazy.
he really adjust his gameplay that much? On top of, how is this going to be looked at as both one of the biggest unknown factors, as well as, oh my God, this man actually calls himself the Riz God?
I think that's kind of what it is, especially with some of these vets being like, if people were watching him and perceive him to already be younger than he is, and then everybody gets out there and they're like, oh, this little guy, I'm sure he was a big character. Like that might work in Rizzo's favor. Nobody's going to think of him as a threat, especially if that was already a little bit of his perception on the last season.
Well,
I think
and then
Savannah's
like,
certainly more in danger.
yeah, I was just say he could also very easily be like, yeah, she won. I didn't win. Go
Oh,
for
yeah.
her.
They're like, yeah, I lost. I was a fallen angel in Final Four fire making, and I was just a big personality. But she is like, she won all those immunities, and she won Ultimate
That's
Game, and
exactly.
she beat me in fire making. Like, oh my
I
god.
mean, yeah, he doesn't need to stretch the truth when he's like, yeah, I wasn't really good at puzzles at all. I never won a challenge, and I
Yeah,
lost miserably in fire. So
yeah,
maybe you want to take me to the end, just to that
yeah.
resume could help you down the line.
That actually, Rizzo finally making the final 3. That would be. I'm kind of interested to see what his final speech would look like. I was excited for it. What I thought was going to happen in this episode, but
Especially,
maybe
especially
I'll
to a
get that
group.
in the future.
Well, especially to a group of returning players. I've said this before once I
Yeah,
found out he was cast, but I think he kind of fills the like. I go back to the Adam Klein on Winners of War, or like
Winners of
the
War.
Zeke on Game Changer kind of mold of like young, excitable super fan who's able to be an audience analog to like, oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm surrounded by all these legends. Isn't this
Yeah.
wild? And he's not just talking about the celebrities.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that leads us to our last question I have for you, Mike, which is the promo for 50. So I did pull some comments from the complete promo that aired that was posted on the Survivor Facebook page. So this is about let me just read you the two comments. Okay. Which one again had more likes? You had me until Mr. Beast. ... Or where's Boston Rob? Sad face emoji. Which one had more likes?
Well, I know which comment Liana Boris likes, but I think it's an easy answer here. Whenever Boston Rob is mentioned on the Facebook page, it will get more likes.
It's true. You know what? I was really surprised because when I look at the Reddit reaction and I look at the Facebook reaction, and this is why I'm always reminded that, like, when I think Survivor is trying to appeal, like, Survivor has to appeal to a super broad range of people. Okay. It's
Right.
not just me. So when I see only 4 people, like very, very few people were complaining about Mr. Beast being there or even the celebrity involvement at all. All the comments were like, where's Boston Rob? Or one was, let my man Colby rest. Unk
Rest.
knows it's been a while since season 2.
I was gonna say he hasn't been on since 30. Are they saying like he looks old?
I don't know. A lot of people were like, Colby aging like a fine wine. Ozzy looks bad. It was mostly like those kinds of comments. Not
And
so
I
much.
and
Nobody
honestly,
really fixated on the Mr. Beast thing.
I would say don't disagree with either one of those opinions. Especially in person. Talk about a freaking
Oh,
stud of a man. And Colby looked damn
I
good in
know.
denim.
Yeah, yeah. What a snack. So yeah, they seemingly are just, casuals don't really mind. Whereas all the complaining pretty much I saw on the Survivor Reddit and in my own household was about Mr. Beast. And it was all coming from me complaining about Mr. Beast. I just don't like the man.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
we
I'm
need
a
to
Mr. Beast hater.
we need to drill into this as we look ahead to season 50 as well. Like, I need to get your thoughts on this trailer because it really was a Jekyll and Hyde scenario in that I think a lot of people felt
Yeah.
that first half super exciting, hearing from all these old school voices, starting off with a coach poem, stay magnifique, no notes. And then Zach Brown shows up with a big ass fish slung over his shoulder. And then we get the Billie Eilish boomerang idol. And then we get Jimmy Fallon might decide my fate is game. And then we get the man, the myth, the legend, MRBEAST, standing there with a briefcase. Just give me your running opinions as that 2.5 minute segment aired.
Okay, so I had pretty much already fallen asleep watching the Survivor finale. Puya came and like woke me up and was like, "You have to watch the trailer for." He's like, "It's coming. That they're gonna show the trailer for 50." I'm laying in bed. My only reaction was, "Why TF is Mr. Beast here?" And let me tell you, I've thought about it a lot. I'm trying to distill down like why I think a lot of us feel so frustrated. I think that when we were voting on things, we were hearing Survivor 50 in the hands of the fans. And then turns out not just us, the little people who were voting, but then there's the big fans, the Tyler Perrys of them all, who are potentially having a greater impact, which I think is a perfect representation of the oligarchy that's currently existing in America as capitalism is taking over and wealth is being consolidated into just a few people who have a ton of power, and us little people at the bottom feel left out.
I think that is such an interesting way to put it. I didn't even think about that because a lot of people were saying, like, we didn't vote for this, but in the hands of the fans has a widespread opinion because I don't know. Actually, I don't know if Zach Brown's a fan, but like these other people have expressed at least some sort of fandom with Survivor. So it's like it's in the hands of all types of fans.
Those fans, and especially in the hands of the rich famous fans, they have more power than us. We got to vote on what tribe colors. I don't know. Look, I'm trying. The other thing too is I'm having a very emotional, negative, knee-jerk reaction to everything that I'm seeing. Let's try to put that aside. You don't actually know what it's like. You don't know. Maybe he's just showing up to like to just do some cross promotion.
That's
the whole
the
Beast
thing.
Games thing.
I would not be surprised if each of these people, be it Zach or Mr. I don't know why I'm using their first names. They would show up on island for only like a scene. So if anything, it's like I think you mentioned it's a great microcosm for what some people feel like is wrong with the direction that the show's going into and the way that like Jeff maybe brings in more celebrities than you might think that a show that originally at its conceit was about everyday people living on an island. But while they take up a good majority of airtime on the trailer, I would imagine in the grand scheme of things, they will take up a small portion of things on the island, with perhaps the exception of the twists. And I know it's an objectively weird thing to hear, but God, am I so obsessed with the Billie Eilish boomerang idol.
Billie Eilish boomerang idol.
Like, what an incredible turn of phrase. Shakespeare, for many reasons, could not write as beautiful a piece of language as the Billie Eilish boomerang idol. It has to be the most Mad Libs piece of Survivor literature I have ever heard in my life. It opens up so many questions. Will there be other sponsored advantages? What is a boomerang idol? Why did Billie Eilish get to sign off on this? Did she have her own like advantage menu, or did she get her name just sort of like stuck onto it like a brand sponsorship? There's so many things that this could provide in terms of possibilities. And look, we're here on the B&B. We will certainly have our grumbles and grouses, but how have we been given such a delicious morsel to chew on, Liana, through these cold winter months, than the pure idea of a Billie Eilish boomerang idol, the BEBI,
The BEBI. Yeah, I mean, we're not even gonna need to do Mad Libs. It's done for us. I always picture it a little bit like the Hunger Games, where it's the people that are sponsoring and sending down little packages. And so, you're gonna see Devin's out there in the woods, and then all of a sudden a little package is gonna like float down because Billie Eilish sent him the boomerang idol. Like that's just what I'm envisioning happening. I highly doubt that that's the case. But look, I mean, we've got a lot of interesting players that are coming back, and I'm going to go into it with an open mind to
Hmm.
see ultimately what they end up doing for 50. And yeah, and I'm just looking forward to wrapping up the new era.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it remains to be seen what happens with 51 onwards, whether it'll be influenced by 49 or some of the changes they made to 49, whether it'll be influenced by 50. It sounds like, from what Jeff Probst said to me, they're not necessarily thinking about that stuff right now. So, really, it is an open book. And I cannot wait to turn our page to chapter 50. So, even when it's just the two of us, you know how we close out these podcasts by highlighting a charity or cause that is important to
Mhm.
this podcast at large, I suppose. Liana, does anything cross your mind? Anything you want to highlight to the listeners out there?
Yeah, I do. I do have a charity I want to point out. It's Feeding America, feedingamerica.org.
Mm,
It's all about ending hunger. I know that, especially with changes that are happening in our federal government, there's a lot of aid that's not being put out as it was previously. So I highly recommend, especially during the holiday season when things are cold, to donate to your local food bank, or specifically if you want to check out Feeding America, they're a really great organization as well.
all right. Totally co-sign all of that. So feel free. Check out Feeding America. Give if you can. If you can, give it to your local food bank as well if you have extra
Mhm.
supplies left over from all of your holiday feasting. But Liana, people will be hopefully feasting on some stuff you've got going on. Though I believe the PAL is done for 2025, right? You just did your final podcast of the year. You have anything else coming up in the next couple weeks?
We did, yeah. So if you want to check out what if you want to check out more thoughts about how much I hate Mr. Beast, you can listen to the latest PAL episode. But that was our final holiday Christmas episode before we take a week off for the holidays, and then we'll be back in the new year with episode 50. So we're actually going to kick off the first in 2026 with PAL episode 50.
All right. And I also know that between now and Survivor 50, you'll have another major reality show sashaying back into the workroom. Drag Race season 18. Are you excited for it?
Yeah, I'm excited for Drag Race. It's always fun. It's always nice to start the new year with something colorful and sparkly. So I always look forward to a Drag Race season.
Well, if you want to hear me talking to some of these sparkly personalities, I alluded to a lot of stuff that was said, but my interviews with the final five are up on Parade in written and video form. We're actually still on the Amazing Race postseason grind. I had a really fantastic interview with Izzy and Paige. Could not recommend that more. That is one of my favorite podcasts that I've done in quite some time. Talk with Joseph and Adam as well. Another favorite podcast I've done as of late is that I had the distinct pleasure of joining your boo thing, Liana and Puya, and Eric Stein to preview Rob Cesternino on the Traders.
Mhm.
This was, for as much as we were glazing Rob over the course of a couple podcasts in July, this was like a really concentrated session where that was another 2.5 hour extravaganza where I think we were really cards up about what we thought Rob's chances would be, his skill set, who he might connect with, who he might not. Obviously, that is going to be a major highlight for this podcast network in the off season. So if you aren't checking out Traders, do yourself a favor and do so. It's going to be such a fun time both watching and covering it. And then I may have a little bit of a Survivor 50 project or two coming your way in the new year. But more about that in 2026. We'll worry about that once the ball drops. And hopefully, we did not drop the ball on covering this season. I want to thank everybody again, as always, for not only listening, but all the guests that we had, of course, over the course of this season. Ali Lasher, Marianne O'Ketch, the aforementioned Puya, Sam Phelan, Chantel Francis, Kevin Jacobs, Stephanie Berger, Peridium, Teeny, Shannon Gus, Christine Riccio, and Annika. They were honestly such a great group of people. I think really changed my perspective. I don't know about you, Liana, coming in, especially the past couple of weeks, where, again, people were a little down on this season in the last few weeks, especially. And it was nice to have some refreshingly positive spins on all this. Again, Not to say that we feel like these seasons and the discussion should not be without reproach, but we tend to skew a little lighter and more humor based on this podcast. And I feel like our guests brought that in spades this season.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was such a fun season. I think we had yeah, it's I always love walking away like seeing another perspective, and I think that our guests definitely brought that. I love that.
Well, of course, I would not be here without all the great stuff that you provide, Liana. This was something new for us. We usually do this in the preseason, but if people are more into some like Mike and Liana, we have to say solo because we're a duo, but duo podcasts, like, let us know. Who knows? Maybe we'll change things up, or we'll invite a celebrity on to show up for like 15 minutes and dip out, like what will happen on 50 proper.
Ooh, that's right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for whatever advantages they're going to bring. Did they bring a briefcase?
We shall see. Well, much like a boomerang idol, before you know it, we'll be back in your feed soon with coverage of Survivor 50. Until then, I hope everyone has a restful and safe or happy holidays. Thank you all so much for the support, whether it be providing games, listening, commenting on our videos, on our podcast proper. It means the absolute world to us. We've been doing this for 15 seasons now, and we hope to keep on rolling for Survivor 50 and beyond. Of course, got to give a special thanks to the entire team behind the scenes at RHAP for always packaging this podcast for your eyes and your ears, and Wolf of America for his incredible, unimitatable theme song. Liana and I will be back in the new year talking about, believe it or not, Survivor 50. Until then, everybody, we'll check you out at your next stay.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.